Be strong, be you, and be a ninja babe. I love that.
Hey, welcome today to the Ninjababes Podcast. We are new to doing video formatting, so I'm just going to say this right off the bat. I'm excited that this is going to be a YouTube video, but this is actually the first one I'm recording for YouTube. Today I have with me Behnoush Babzani. So welcome to the podcast.
Hello, ninja babes.
What's
I'm so
up?
excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And Ninja Babes, you might be like, which season of Ninja Warrior was Behnoush on? Probably racking your brain. Well, she was not on any episode yet. Maybe she will be in a season in the future. This
I
this
can
could be
dream. I can only dream.
this could be the start of something. But I invited Behnoush on today because she has an incredible story. And as you know, on the Ninja Babes, we are always talking about strong women with inspiring stories and women who have something to teach us from their strength, from their experience. And so I'm excited to jump into your story and to explain to our whole audience, like, why are you here? Why am I breaking my athletic trend to bring on someone totally from a different scope of life?
Well,
So,
I'm honored that you're
yeah.
you're breaking that, and I really appreciate it. I'm excited to be here. My story that I'm sharing today is what brought us and connected us was that I have just published my brand new book, and it's called "Hold On While I Hang On."
Mhm.
And this lioness here is you ninja babes. It's every woman, this powerful woman. And my story is basically where I share my journey dealing with various health challenges. I'll give a brief kind of what that was, but
Mhm.
basically at the age of 12, I was diagnosed with a rare blood disorder that doctors and medical staff hadn't really had that much experience with, and treatment wasn't working, and it was getting kind of dangerous, and I had to turn to different kind of medical interventions to get me back, and then I was healed, and I thought that it was all great, and then all of a sudden at the age of 19,
Mhm.
teenager, young, all living that teenage life, and suddenly it came back, and it was critical, and I needed to have a bone marrow transplant, where basically they put me into isolation at the hospital, and they emptied out my immune system with high dose chemotherapy, and they introduced a brand new immune system, which was my bone marrow donor. And the idea was so that the donor, when they give me his bone marrow, doesn't recognize that it's in a foreign place, because if it does, then it'll start attacking my organs. So repeatedly, doctors were saying that it's very dangerous. There's a low success rate. Even if you do survive, the chemo will not allow you to have children. You won't, and there was just a lot happening after. And then through what we'll talk about, the power of that mindset, I was able to overcome. And then after that, there was a series, Kara knows, read the book, a series of life events that again continued to test me, continued to really have me call on the most powerful tool that I could use to overcome this. And that was the power of the mind and
Mhm.
my mindset. Yeah, when I was in the hospital, I was in isolation a lot. I think a lot of us can relate to that right now, right? We can't go out, we can't do anything, and with that, when you're not kind of distracted by the outside world, you do have to turn inside. And sometimes the things that we are left with is very scary, and we let our mind go in different places. And so it's really empowering to know that we have the choice of where we're going to direct our mind and
Mhm.
how we're going to push through. So
Yeah.
that's my book in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, absolutely. There's so much more to it. I did read the book and kind of listen to a lot of your YouTube videos and things as well about your story. And it's so incredible because like that was such a nutshell, but like the magnitude of everything, I cried like when I read your book.
Oh my goodness.
It's just like I don't know, like I love hearing people's stories and I love being able to, have that empathy of like realizing what they're going through and like, feeling it and dealing with it and like how seeing it almost, when you empathize with someone, it relates to your own experience as well in a different way. And this is completely different. And for me, like this was something that my audience knows about, but I had dislocated my shoulder last year at the end of Ninja Warrior on set, um, on the course. And so, I knew it was long story short, like dislocated my shoulder, completely tore the labrum, ended up needing surgery. It was like the end of the season, my season, clearly. But I, that was extremely traumatic to me. But in like, I knew my shoulder would get better. Like, I knew I didn't lose my arm. I wasn't like, I didn't have a threat of death. You know what I mean? So it was so different. But even reading your book and realizing like all of the things that you said about realizing the situation and accepting it and being able to like face those fears or realize like you hated what was happening, like you hated the diagnosis, like things that were coming at you, but realizing you had to face it head on. And I think for so many athletes as well, when they get injured or have something else like traumatic going on in their life, it's like what they love to do, the life that they're living on the course and in athletics and all that, it can feel like stolen from them or just like it's vanished, like they can no longer do it. And so on those ways, like I could relate to some of the things that you were describing about those feelings, but your story is like so much more than that. It just puts everything in perspective of like I had no threat of my life being taken from me. It was just my arm. But it's just like everyone has their own story, and in
Absolutely.
perspective of like how everyone else's life is, it's just so healthy and like great to hear other people's experiences because it puts your own life into perspective. So
Absolutely, yeah. And there's no comparison what I went through. I mean, just hearing,
mhm,
and I can't tell you, dislocating a shoulder and everything that you do just sounds
yeah,
so amazing and beyond anything in my capability. But I think that what it sounds like for you, I mean, you as an athlete, okay, if I work out, I can achieve this, and then I'm going to do
mhm,
this. Like you put your mind to something, and you do that, and then an injury
mhm,
pulls us out of the kind of control seat, right? Because now everything that you had planned, now with this injury, is going to get deviated, and
mhm,
you feel out of control.
yeah,
But in fact, you had a choice, and you put yourself back into control, and you were the one that got to choose. Am
mhm,
I going to, is this the rest of my career is gone, it's done, I'm not going to be able to overcome? And I'm sure you heard a lot of other people say, right, I don't know if it was through the television or through coaches or
uh-huh,
whoever you're working, a lot of people would say this might
yeah,
be it for you, right? So you have,
mhm,
there's two sets of limiting beliefs that are enforced here, right? So it's the people around you and then the language that we have in our head. And so we have to figure out
mhm,
how to shield that and block that. And you did an amazing job, whether it's something huge like a medical
mhm.
challenge, life threatening, or even just a daily challenge. I mean, I'm pulling my tools just dealing with my kids every single day. But yeah, exactly, the
Mhm.
power of the mindset.
Yeah, there's something, two parts specifically in your story where I'm probably gonna get the names wrong, so you'll have to correct me, but you're in, I believe it was the first time that you went to the hospital in Stamford and they were kind of telling you your prognosis and it was more than what you had previously been told. And they were giving you all this like life sentence of like 5 years, maybe 10, and just like that shock, but also then the response of your family who was like, no, like, I hear what you're saying, but that's not what is happening. And
Yeah.
then again later, when you were gonna leave the hospital after the bone marrow transplant, and literally you had a nurse who said to you like, "Oh, you'll be back." Like, whoa, I read that and I was like, "Oh no," like, but it's so true. Like people want to tell us like the worst that's gonna happen, and sometimes it is from a place of care or like concern, or they feel the need to warn you or whatever. But that just like how you handle that information is so vital to the outcome of your life. How did
Right.
you how did you feel in those moments when people were telling you like this is what you should expect kind of a thing?
Yeah, and I think naturally when you hear that, it would be insane to say, "Oh no, it didn't affect me at all," because
Mhm,
that's just impossible, right? We're human beings and we go through the emotions. And I think allowing myself to feel, it wasn't that they said you're going to die, and I was like, "No, I'm not," and I just moved on. It was very much thinking, "Okay, well here I am. I'm faced with this," and just being in that moment and
mhm,
being with what they're saying, and then processing it properly, right? So death, okay, accepting what the current situation is. So they, exactly what you just said, legally, doctors and certain people around you have to
mhm,
tell you worst case scenario. They have to cover themselves. And then other people around you, whatever they're telling you, might come from either their experience, perhaps their own insecurities, or where they're
mhm,
trying to, force their energy upon you.
mhm,
So that's where again you get to make that choice. And it's
mhm,
it's not enough to say, be with that moment and then accept it, and you're fine. I think that there's two parts, and I say this in my teachings as well. It's you and working on you and your mindset, and then exactly what you said, the power of the people around you and who you choose to place yourself with. So, and I call it vitamin F, my vitamin friends and family. And I need to get a high dose once a week. I get a really, really high dose of vitamin F, and it charges me.
Yeah.
But there's people around you, and you don't know until you really sit with it, who are crushing you. And there's people around you who are your number one cheerleaders. And it's really important to time take inventory of these people and check in and afterwards, because sometimes from someone for so long that you just place them in that category of someone that needs to be, your friend, because you've had such a quantity of years with them. So you're gonna hear from coaches or from friends around you or from, and you have that choice. Am I going to position myself to be around this person who's making me feel this is toxic, what they're giving me? And a transfer of energy, even from your emails, Cara, I was like, oh, I'm so excited. I mean, I could just feel your energy through writing, through emails. It was magnificent. And I just couldn't, and some people, to be very honest, even through their emails, I decided I was going to pass because I couldn't have that type of connection. So imagine something so small as an email, being able to pick up that energy, and then daily you're hanging, positioning yourself around someone who's toxic for you. So take inventory and be with how they're making you feel, and if it's serving you or not.
Yeah. What would your advice be for anyone who does realize that there's people in their life that bring them down or, exude that toxic energy, but maybe there's someone that you can't get rid of, like it's a family member or someone that you're inevitably going to see, and you can't just cut them off exactly?
Right. So absolutely. And I know it usually is family, and that's kind of the tricky part, is how. And so there's two parts to that, is that how to cut them off, but also, you might be serving them more than they're serving you.
Yeah.
So I've chosen in my path, I know that this all happened to me, to live a life of serving. And I can tell that for some people I am, or some people in my life, they may be the light. I might be giving them the light that they need, but it's toxic for me. So in many, many cases, you do just like you can't have too much vitamin F, you can't have too much of everything. That's where you can organize your own life, and you do everything in doses, and you are able to control and limit your encounter with them. And I do a lot of like energy work. And before I do anything, even before I got onto this conversation, I do a level of protecting, right? You can protect yourself, and you can be with what your powers are and how strong you are in what areas, and protect yourself from letting someone else bring that energy to you. But you have, it's the thing about this in life, in medical, and anything, you're not a passenger, right? It's not like, oh, I have to be because I have obligation. You don't. In any case scenario, and I know everyone talks about this over and over, when you're in an airplane and those oxygen masks come down, who do they tell you to put it on first? The person next to you or yourself? You. Because you're the only person that can protect you. You're useless if you're not protecting yourself. You're useless to yourself and every single person around you. So you do have the choice to say, you know what, this is toxic for me. You don't have to necessarily tell that person, that may not support them. But allow yourself to know, okay, I need to limit this to this amount of time, because you might be a light for them. So don't hurt them. Be very gentle with that limiting. But unapologetically distance yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think about the topic of codependency. It's kind of like the same idea. And just thinking about, are there people in my life who they're constantly coming to me with their needs and their things, but I'm never able to unload anything to them, in the sense of like, are we supporting one another? Like, are they taking all of my energy, all of the good parts of my day, like the energy that I have to give, but they're not helping to me fill back up in any way.
Right.
Yeah. I think the other thing is, when you're explaining parts of your story about, like we were talking about, like not just accepting all of this terrible news, but actually like realizing it and doing something with that. When I dislocated my shoulder, I heard a lot of those horror stories of, oh, I dislocated, I had the same exact thing, I ended up getting that same exact surgery, but then after surgery, I ripped the anchors and like redislocated. and like people would tell me their stories, and a lot of them were other gymnasts or other ninjas trying to be very like gracious and like instructing me. And I, it was that moment of like, do I be paranoid now? Do I not go back to ninja because I'm paranoid? Or how can I use that as a tool to safeguard me? And so I was so diligent in recovery and in following the protocol that my surgeons and my PT and my sports therapist gave me, and not like going outside of that realm, because I really wanted to follow the rules. And I really wanted to make sure that I was doing everything in my power to set myself up for success. And, even in my whole recovery process, which I'm still kind of at the tail end of, it's not really quite over, but Corona has made my process just be home versus like going into the PT. But even in that process, just like being thankful for my shoulder and being thankful for every step of the healing process, and very often like talking to my shoulder and being like, you're doing a great job healing, like, shoulder, you're healing well. I'm not going to worry about you ripping back out because you are healing very well. And just like reminding myself of that day to day. And it's like I could easily every day look in the mirror and be like, is this the day that it's going to redislocate? And be terrified I could. And I had someone, a friend who was a gymnast, I had someone constantly reminding me of that fear, because he was very much dealing with that. He was dislocating over and over because of how his surgery ended up. And so I had that in my mind as like this is, going to be a guiding wisdom to like be careful, but I couldn't let that consume my thoughts. I had to allow my thoughts to be consumed with like focusing on healing well and focusing on like believing in the strength that my shoulder had now regained.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's that right there, mind over body.
Yeah.
I mean, whichever way you chose to put your mind is exactly the outcome you would have gotten. And
Hmm.
I can't, I mean, it's to some people it sounds so foreign, but I've lived it, that
Yeah.
the power that your mind has over your body. And again, that's so empowering, because some people look at injured people or look at patients as weak,
Hmm.
when in fact that's the strongest they're ever going to be in their life, because that's when they're using
Yeah.
every power they have and every tool and everything that they can gather, and they're in fight mode, right? You're getting it done. So you
Hmm.
could have listened. And that's one thing you mentioned, was fear, right? It's one
Hmm.
of the most powerful emotions that you can have.
Hmm.
And part of accepting it is to let go of it. And when we talk about mind over body, one of the things that contributed to my healing was a lot of visualization work. So what you're talking about is visualization work, that you talking to your shoulder, seeing your shoulder as healed,
Hmm.
right? You're hearing what the person, the fear of the other people, but you're
Hmm.
eliminating that, and you know that that's not your outcome,
Yeah.
and you're being with the positivity that you want to be with. So in my case, I had a compromised immune system,
Hmm.
and I didn't have the essential. It wasn't that my body was making cancerous cells; it just wasn't making any cells. I was in
Yeah.
isolation. I had to be kind of, the person in the bubble, but I wasn't making red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets especially.
Hmm.
And I ended up connecting with an energy healer, who I thought was comedy. It was 12. I was 12 years old, and the whole thing was just so bizarre and foreign to me. But what
Hmm.
he did teach me that is so valuable and I use to this day is the power of visualization.
Hmm.
And whatever he was doing on his end, but what he taught me was to, with every session that I worked with him,
Hmm.
my platelets were low.
Hmm.
And he had me visualize. He held up a picture of a platelet. He said, "This is what a platelet looks like. I want you to visualize this platelet." And as you do, he taught me breathing techniques, and this is going more in the spiritual path. But I want you to visualize this one platelet turning into two,
Hmm.
and then these two platelets turning into three. So I was visualizing, and I knew what it was going to look like and where I wanted to go. But before I could even do that, I had to detach from the fear, because fear is like a huge block that's not letting any kind of. People talk about manifesting. This is like a big thing now, manifesting or
Hmm.
visualizate. I'm going to be the next, American Ninja Warrior.
Hmm.
But if you have so much fear, you're going based on fear, that's
Hmm.
never going to happen for you. So, so the first step of visualization, the power of the mindset, is to release yourself from that fear and really be with and feel exactly the outcome that you want, and feel everything that comes with it as though you've already had it.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's something for anyone who's been in any of the Ninjababes workshops, like this is so closely related to everything we talk about course strategy. And a lot of ninjas, like we always talk about, if you're gonna make it through this obstacle where your heart's gonna be pounding, like the blood is rushing, your grip is giving out, if all of these like physical things are going to start screaming in your face, you have to have your plan of which hand is going where, how is my body weight helping me swing, all of these things. And so on our own level, like a lot of us do practice that as a course strategy, and I think it's so valuable. I've talked to so many other athletes. Jesse Graff is a big one, talking about just all of the technical movements, and a lot of ninja warriors are also involved with stunt work. And so if you're a stunt woman, man, person, and you're going to do a stunt that you could actually put yourself in harm's way, like physically something really bad can happen if you don't do it right, you have to be so calculated. And it's not just, it's like the partially like the logical end of what makes sense to move my body parts where in order to execute this move, but it's that visualizing of, I need to be confident in the way that this is going to turn out, or fear is going to strike me in the middle of it and I could potentially die or get seriously injured. With Ninja Warrior, like, there's water below us, it's usually a lot safer. Some of us still get injured. I still dislocated my shoulder, other people have crushed ankles, things like that. But um yeah, it's just that whole sense of being able to see the course, see what you desire your outcome to be, and then on the practical level, like, I mean, it's all practical really, but on like the tangible level of literally, where am I putting my hands? Where should my body be facing? How do I want momentum to work in my favor? Like thinking through all of those things. What do you, when you're finding yourself like going to visualize, or even just like clearing your mind, if you realize that you're being consumed with a lot of thoughts that you don't want, that are making you feel things that don't feel good, how do you try to like calm yourself down or clear your mind to reset?
That's a great question. So I kind of touched on it earlier. Is that when we have, I genuinely don't believe in like negative emotions or thoughts, because if you're feeling sad or jealous or worried or angry, by calling it negative, it's almost invalidating what that emotion is, and
Mm,
just by pushing it away doesn't make it. It doesn't get rid of it. You're not released from it.
mm,
So in every occasion, if something comes, um, it's something that I say over and over. Allow yourself to unapologetically feel that, because if it's a natural feeling that's coming up in you, there's nothing wrong with that. The only thing is how long you choose to stay in that place,
mm,
right? So what is it, what kind of effect is it happening on your body? If you're angry and you're seeing that now it's detrimental in the mind, it's
mm,
taking place in the we've now seen the connection between stress and negative thoughts to the physical, or something, to the physical, right? So gut issues,
yeah.
all kinds of deterioration takes place. It's actually toxic. And so it's not the issue of don't feel those things. It's a matter of what, allow yourself to feel it, eliminate that fear of it, because it's like if you keep, oh god, the depression or the negative thoughts are coming in and you're trying to push it, then you create it into this big monster that you can't get rid of. But it's just a natural thought. So allow
Mhm,
yourself to feel that, be with it. And then I ask myself repeatedly, this is the question that I ask myself: is this thought or emotion serving me?
mhm,
Is this thought or emotion serving me? So there's some thoughts that you're like, oh God, da, 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 and then it ignites you into a place of solution mode. You're like, okay, now I need to do this, 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 and this. Yes, it is
yeah.
serving me. Thank goodness. Let's go forward. But if it's just it's a thought and it's nagging and it's creating, you're in touch with your body and it's creating a physical effect that you do not desire and it's not conducive to any
Mm,
part of your day, you have to release it and let it go. And you alone can do that. It doesn't matter how much therapy or how much training or how much whatever you do, only you have that capacity to let go of what is not serving you.
mm,
Now on my end, I do a lot of mindfulness training. We do meditation, visualization, and there's ways that you can, like, in that moment, I do breathe work of releasing that emotion. But
mm,
that first part is allowing yourself to be with that emotion or
yeah.
thought. Ask yourself if it's serving you. If not, get in that driver's seat and let that go.
Mhm, absolutely. I think that's so valuable, and I think sometimes people just don't realize that they do have the power to do that. And I think it's something that, yeah, we practice, and you have to get into like build your strategies, build your practice of how you are able to recognize it and able to do something about it. Cause sometimes we just get stuck in that place of not really like we'll realize it's happening, but we're not like stopping it and really recognizing it and then deciding how we want to go. And so it's like that first part of seeing it, like calling it what it is if you have to, like journaling it out, doing whatever you need to do to like
Yeah.
process how you're feeling, and then like work somewhere from there. Um, Something else that I've been thinking about in relation to what we do with Ninja is like a lot of women in our sport, some of us like have been involved with Ninja for a while and we're going after it, we're like crushing it, like meeting our goals, and then there's other women who still are in that beginning stage of like, oh, if I start working out or if I start doing this, I'm gonna gain muscle, and then like, do I want that? And like just the stigma of like women's strength in general. And I think that something that I noticed in one of your YouTube videos, we are talking about scars, is realizing like the physical scars that you have from later in your story, from your car accident and everything that happened, which have to read the book to find out. But but yeah, just like I don't know, like this is kind of a different topic, but like just thinking about our bodies in general, do you do a lot of work with women when it comes to being proud of their physical body, whether it's for their beauty, for their strength, for, scars or things that are just evidence of what have happened to them in their lives? Like, do you do a lot of work with women as they like accept their physical bodies?
Well, just like you said, so a lot of my work is geared towards accepting and that mindset. And so we we attach our happiness to something else. So we say, I will be happy if I make it to the American Ninja Warrior. I will be
Mhm.
happy if I gain, if my body looks like this. I will be happy if. So we rely on an outside factor
Mhm.
to make our inside happy.
Yeah.
And so that is, it's conducive, because if something on the outside can make us happy, something on the outside can take that away from us very quickly, right? So
Mhm.
it's creating that internal foundation. Your baseline just has to be happy, accepted, and that's a heavy load to just say you have to accept your body as is,
Mhm.
right? But that takes a lot of work, and a lot of everything that we're talking about today is not something you don't watch a YouTube video or
Right.
listen to one podcast and then suddenly you've achieved it and you're, tomorrow you're going to be, a ninja warrior. So you continuously listen to these podcasts, continuously put yourself in position of practice and
Mhm.
practicing to accept everything as is, your body, everything inside. And one thing that you said that was very powerful was you talked about your thank you shoulder.
Mhm.
Thank you, right? Gratitude.
Yeah.
Gratitude is one of the strongest things we can do to achieve balance in ourselves, right? So anytime something is going wrong, the first thing I do is think about what's going right,
Yeah.
right? So that's like, I know I'd be with it, but the first thing is, okay, for every one thing that's going wrong, there's a chunk of things going right. So if I'm not happy with, the scar that's on my body, the position of my body, it is functioning so magnificently for me. It's insane. Like, just think about the process of the brain, the
Mhm.
process of our circulation system. Everything is happening for us, and we need to be grateful for that,
Mhm.
first and foremost. And so, when you live in a place of gratitude and abundance, um, everything else is a lot easier to. You're able to deflect things a lot more, right? So you are grateful for your body. You're grateful for what it does do for you.
Mhm.
And when you're in that place, you're in solution mode. So I love what I have, and now I want to get this as well. But whether you get that or not will not change your level of gratitude and happiness that you do have. So make that internal balance. And through mindful practices and various techniques that I teach in my workshops, is that not allowing outside factors to trigger inside response.
Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful. Something else that we talked about just 2 weeks ago on the podcast here, we were talking about like building mental strength. We had this whole episode about like building that mental strength, but I was bringing up the fact that sometimes, especially I can speak for women. I don't know as much if this happens for guys or maybe it happens in a different way, but sometimes in Ninja, like, you're constantly trying really difficult things. And a lot, like we've all accepted that failure is just part of the process in Ninja Warrior. Like oftentimes you will fall into the mat, whatever, 10, 20 times before you get a big move that you're trying to get. Or it's like you have to just accept that falling is part of the process of learning. And it's really showing you like your baseline of what you can do, but now what you're trying to achieve. And there might be so much quote unquote failure in that space, but really it's all progress. It's all teaching you. It's all like getting you where you're aiming to go. But oftentimes, sometimes we can leave the gym still only counting how many times we fell versus how many times we achieved something, or
Yeah.
thinking more about like how tough it was or how many other people were getting the obstacle that I was trying to get and I never got it, even at the end of my 2 hour session or whatever it was. Um, and so we've been talking a lot the past couple of weeks just about how do you build up like that mental strength to not beat yourself up about it. And I think it goes right along the lines of what you're saying, like counting all of those small wins, like every reason for gratitude, and allowing that to like build you up and fill you up to have more of that resiliency, so that when you do realize like I'm trying this over and over and I haven't gotten it yet, like being able to frame your mind to focus on like the not yet factor and like realize I have made progress in other ways, I am getting stronger. And so do you have any other advice or things that you've like taught other women about like just continuing to build that resiliency?
Yeah, and the pushback that I get of what you're saying and what we just said,
Hmm.
the other side of it is they're saying, well, if you keep accepting everything that you have, that's okay. My body's fine. That's okay. I fell down. That's okay. I didn't
Hmm.
make it. Then, then if you're accepting everything, then how are you going to continue to push forward
Hmm.
if everything makes you happy?
Yeah.
And that's so far from where what we're talking about. Because
Yeah.
first of all, as women, tell me when we're going to actually give up. I mean, this is not this is not a reality for us, but it's the space that this regret and anger and putting yourself down, the space that it occupies in your mind
Hmm.
doesn't allow you to go into solution mode.
Hmm.
So what is
Yeah.
it, how is it serving you to say, God, I fell down and I can't, that it was because of this, it was because of that, it was my trainer didn't do this and I didn't work out hard enough and
Hmm.
and it's just what you're focusing on that. So where are you in solution mode? Accept as it is. That moment that when they fall into the water, I am locked in on their eyeballs, and it's like it almost is this wild moment of of acceptance that
Yeah.
okay, I'm in the water. What am I going to do now? Am I going to pout? Am I going to cry? Am I going to whine? You've fallen, you're in the water. And what do they do when they fall in the water? They get out of that. They get out. No one's sitting there whining. I don't know. Maybe that's the producer, but you move on. You go, and whatever you do on the back end, I'm sure, well, we don't see on the camera, but I always lock in on that moment. It's like, what is going through their mind?
Hmm.
You've been training for so long. You push your body so hard,
Yeah.
and all that in a matter of seconds just goes away. But all that work that got you there does not go away.
Right.
So you can't focus on yourself being in the water. And I just 2 days ago focused on or put a post on a genius Albert Einstein quote. I don't know if you've seen it, but
Oh.
he says, if I had one
Hmm.
hour to solve a problem, I would focus 55 minutes on the problem and only 5 minutes on the solution, right? So when you have that clarity of what happened and you're debriefing and you're going through and you're not, it's not the negative. It's like, okay, well, what did I do? You clear the useless thoughts. This thought and this emotion is not serving me. Being hard on myself is not
Hmm.
serving me. Let it go. So what was the problem? You're going into solution mode. You're looking at it clear. Next time, you only need
Yeah.
5 minutes for that solution because now you have that clarity. So it doesn't mean that if you're grateful and if you're focusing on the positive, that you're just going to accept everything as is. It's like you've now created space to go into efficiency, productivity,
Hmm.
and healing.
Yeah. I love that. And I love that you're like speaking our language because it's so true. Like so many of us, that moment that, especially during filming, like on the show, the moment that your hands are slipping and you realize it's like slow motion, a free fall of like, I am falling. And then all of a sudden, like you're greeted by the water. And yeah, it's such like a surreal moment because you're putting your full effort into like sometimes these very microscopic movements as you're like trying to get to the end of the obstacle, and it's like you're dangling, and some people they're able to make it through quick, they get up the wall, like they're moving on. But for other people it's like when you've come to the end of what your body can do in that moment and it's just like the fall. Yeah. But so many I would say like I would say the vast majority of ninjas, we come out smiling because we pushed ourselves to our limit. We got there. Like, we made it to the show. We made it to our
Yes.
friends and family cheering from the stands, and all of the ninjas are back in, we call it ninja holding. Like, we're backstage, like, as a group watching on, like, a tiny monitor, and we're cheering. Like, we're of course we want to see each other make it to our goals, make it as far as possible, but in general, we're a very positive, happy community. And so it's like we do look at every single obstacle completed, every single step completed as such a victory. So yeah, there's definitely been those moments where people fall and they're mad because they're like, I was so close, or I did worse than last year, or whatever. And yeah, people have those moments too, for sure. Um, but I remember, like, my last season, before I dislocated my shoulder competing in Baltimore City Finals, when I fell where I fell in that spot, I it was on the third obstacle, and I had made it further on the obstacle, but I still fell on the same obstacle as I had in qualifying. And so I was upset about that, but at the same time, I do remember my free fall thoughts, as I was,
Oh
like,
wow.
falling to the water, and I remember thinking, like, "Why am I doing anything else?" Like, that was my thought, right before I hit the water, and when I came out of the water, it was this, like, moment of clarity, like, I want to give my life completely to, like, working in this ninja community, like, competing, talking to women about strength. Like, I had that moment of, like, why am I doing anything else? And it was like I didn't get as far as I wanted on the course, but, like, that frustration, like, gave me such clarity of, like, I want to commit to this, not just to make it further next time, but, like, to continue this work in the community and to see, like, bigger results in what I'm doing with Ninja Babes and everything else. um so yeah, those moments of the free fall are really, really intense.
That's so incredible, and that's a sign of you trusting the process.
Yeah.
Because some people are hands, if they have their failure hands up and they leave, and a lot of
Mhm.
people, that I talk to are kind of they don't know what they want. They don't know. They said these every time I try to do this, this happens and I can't get it done. Right. So
Mhm.
they're bringing themselves into victim mode. Everything is happening to me. Everything is
Mhm.
happening to me. And one of the they asked me to choose a powerful line in my book, and it was that um, these life events didn't happen to me, but
Yeah.
they happened for me. And it's because of these life events that I that clarity, that moment of falling, it's like, nope, I need to get right back up, and this is where I need to
Yeah.
be. This is where it is, and trusting that those and every time. I mean, I wrote this book years ago, and getting it published. Whew, I thought writing it was going to be insane. Like it was just such a challenge. And
Yeah.
I'm not a writer. My whole life experience is in business development and marketing. So just convincing myself that I can write a book was a huge thing in itself. And then I wrote the book. And then it was a matter of, oh my gosh, I can get it published. I'm just going to get it published. I'm going to email a few
Yeah.
people. My book will be, I'm going to be Carrie Bradshaw. And I'm
Yeah.
going to be on it. And then it was 2 years of rejection
Wow.
and rejection and rejection. And then I thought I had to come and sit with my, have a conversation with myself. And is this something that I'm pushing too hard? Should I just let it go?
Mhm.
And I just had to trust the process and be with my my different options. And about a week into, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just self-publish, forget it. It's on Amazon, it's totally possible to do.
Mhm.
Knock, knock, knock. This amazing publishing opportunity came to me.
Wow.
So I trusted the process. I was allowing it to happen and still building the momentum towards it. So
Mhm.
it's not that you you give up on, if there's obstacles in front of you, you don't give up.
Right.
You still know what outcome you want. It's just not going to be that journey that you know that you think you're going to get there. It's going to be wildly different.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, but
Especially
you'll get there.
yeah, especially because a few weeks later is when I dislocated my shoulder. So,
Oh my
yeah, and then it was
yeah.
yeah, I've talked about it so much on the podcast, but it's like it was, everything that you explained, like that having to, like, grieve of what happened, and all of these plans that I had were just thwarted and, like, out the window. And it was like going through that process of, like, at first it was so much anxiety, not so much, I don't want to say it that way, but it was more so like at first I had this weight of how am I going to get back? And, like, there was anxiety mixed with just, like, wondering if it'll ever happen, until I finally, after having surgery, probably like 3 weeks or 4 weeks into recovery, just realizing, like, this has to be my own journey. Like, I can't just like expect to be better tomorrow, and I can't I don't know exactly what the result is going to look like, but I have to just focus on my own journey one day at a time and like accept that it's happening and believe the best for my shoulder.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah. So where can people buy your book?
My book is available anywhere books are sold, but due to our little corona situation, the COVID-19, there's a little delay in shipping. So the fastest one that's going to get it to you is Amazon.
Okay.
Just go into Amazon and search Hold On While I Hang On. And that will be available to you both in the ebook version, Kindle, or you can get the paperback.
Mm-hmm.
And there's more information on workshops that I do, online seminars, and courses. Everything's virtual right now we're doing, but that's all at my website, BehnoushBabzani.com.
Awesome.
And I just connected with you on Instagram. I love your Instagram, so I frequent that often, and that handle is
Nice.
at Behnoush Babzani.
Awesome. Yeah, we will link to all your things and point everyone towards you. Oh, and then the last thing that is exciting that I want to share is we're going to be doing a book giveaway. So,
Yes, I'm so excited to give this. Yes, I've worked very hard, and a lot of women have worked very hard on things. And
yeah.
this book kind of covers various things. It's a love story between mother and daughter. It's a love story between me and getting to my relationship. It's overcoming. It's mental health.
Yeah.
There's some mental health in there. There's infertility. I mean, it covers everything. And I encourage you not only to read it, but to think about how you can share. I'm telling the audience and you, obviously, how you can share your story, because each person's story serves as a journey, a step into someone's journey on how they can help. So I've learned so
Yeah.
much in this conversation by you telling your story, and I really can't wait to read your book.
Thank you for speaking that out there. I'm like so
Yes,
honored.
you have to. Yes, if you can do American Ninja Warriors, you can definitely, your Ninja Babe, but can definitely write a book.
That's so funny. Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, a few days from after this podcast airs, we will be doing a live stream and just kind of following up whatever questions all of you have from listening. And if you can get your hands on the book before then, or if you're trying to hold out to win it, like do you. But definitely we'll follow up with Behnoush and do more questions, more like stories from your life and hear more about you. So we always look forward to these like follow-up live streams because it's another way for everyone to connect with you and hear more about your story. So we're excited. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you. I'm
being on
so
today.
excited.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Ninja Babes, for offering your time to me. And I'm excited I got to see your beautiful face, Cara.
Thank you.